Welcome to the second part of my interview with Christer Holmgren, my great friend and fellow expert on everything to do with Charles Lechmere as Jack the Ripper. We'll carry on where we left off, going straight into the story of his appearance in the documentary Jack the Ripper, The Missing Evidence, and also his book, Cutting Point. The television company got in touch with the charity, the chairwoman of the charity, who then, because they wanted to do a documentary about a Jack the Ripper suspect, and they were looking around to see which new suspect they might use. And she passed the query on to me, and I got in touch with them, and that was how we got in touch with Blink, who are the company who made the Missing Evidence documentary.
Yeah.
And I spoke to them at length, met them at their production office, which was in Hackney, and met them several times, gave them quite a lot of information, and they wanted, and they were sold on doing Lechmere as their subject, and I suggested you as the speaking voice, as the person to tell the story, and so take us on from there. You came over in July 2014. I've looked up, I know when it was, because we went to see. One of the things we did, when you came over, we went to Lusk's grave. Do you remember that?
Yeah, George Lusk's grave. Yeah,
really. Yeah, we had a look at George Lusk's grave, and So tell me, how did they get in touch with you? Because I don't know your side of it really.
Well, the documentary was in two parts. There was the London part, and there was also a part done here in Sweden. So the team came over and did a lot of material in Helsingborg, where I live, and well, it was a very good experience. The film team was led by a guy called Sam Berrigan-Taplin, and there were 3 or 4 more people involved, and it was all, well, they were all very, very busy and it was intense days, and it was funny because you could see from the beginning that they were doing their job. They were not necessarily very interested per se by it. So they were doing a job, and they wanted to do a good job. But as the production progressed, they more and more got really interested in it, and more started speaking to me about, wait a minute, this seems to be correct. You seem to be right. So they invested personally a lot in it. And I know that Sam Taplin, who was the boss for the team, he's been out discussing the case on Casebook and so on a number of times.
And he was a very nice guy, wasn't he? And he supported Queen's Park Rangers, I remember. And there's a Queen's Park, they're a football team, unless you don't know. They have a forum for Queen's Park Rangers football supporters, and I saw on there that he was saying, God, I went on Facebook and I was discussing it because people were coming out with the most outrageous accusations about it.
Yeah.
And the people involved in this field, half of them are nutcases. You don't know what it's like when you actually put your feet in the water amongst these people. Because I saw his post. They were like, people were trying to shout him down on Facebook, weren't they? He was a normal guy who's come across a theory which is plausible, and these were. It was a bit like that.
You could see when Sam Taplin finally gave an answer on Facebook that he had really, well, he had more or less worked like a pressure cooker, and he had been more and more annoyed, and then suddenly he just blew his lid and, no, I'm not having any more of this. Because there were lots of accusations even against the film team, and it was a lot about, of course they will do it like that, and of course they will be very biased, and that's nothing to listen to, and so on. Which seems, Ripperology doesn't seem to be very much about trying to find the killer. It seems a lot more to be about trying to debunk theories.
Yeah.
And it's an easy enough hobby because 300 times you will be correct.
Yeah.
But perhaps
And
you won't be the 300.
people take sides like football supporters as well, and won't be shaken from their
No.
support of one thing or another. It becomes a matter of faith. The research team I was very impressed with them. For example, quite early on, when I was investigating Lechmere, and I was looking at all the avenues to see where there was information potentially about it before I said anything to anybody. And one of the things I did was I went to Pickford's to look at their records to see whatever information was there. There's some useful information in there, but nothing, no personnel records, for example. And they're very friendly and open, and they've even got a bit on their website now, I believe. But I told all this to Blink, to the production company. I've been to Pickford's, I've done this, I've looked at this, I've looked at this, I've looked at this. And virtually everything I told them, they didn't just take on face value. They went to Pickford's as well, just in case I was pulling the wool over their eyes. So they actually went, when they said, oh, I spoke on the phone, they said, oh yeah, we just went to Pickford's last week. And part of me was thinking, God, you didn't believe me then, did you? When I told you, they didn't believe me. I was a bit, part of me was slightly insulted, but really, they were doing their job properly, weren't they? And they were very rigorous, I felt.
Yeah.
Because I could have been telling them all sorts of nonsense, and then they would have potentially looked very stupid if they just,
It's not as if Ripperology is a field lacking people who's telling nonsense to others. So they did the right thing, of course. They did. But they were overall they gave a very, very competent impression and really, really, really good research team. So yes, I was impressed.
And the graphics on the show were absolutely top rate. And it was very well told story. The other thing I noticed, I don't know if you came across this, they didn't want to just be spoon-fed stuff. Like there was the guy they found, whose name escapes me actually, who was an expert on the road haulage business, who found out that there was that Broad Street was was involved in the meat haulage business a lot, and so meat would come down from the provinces into the station. They'd unload it onto their carts, and the carman would deliver it to butchers and all sorts of restaurants and places across London. And I had no idea about that at that time. I knew nothing of that. Other people have subsequently researched it, and it is indeed true. Broad Street was a major centre for the delivery of meat, either horse flesh for cat's meat or meat for human consumption. And he was going around on a horse and cart. I don't remember the scene where he was going around the streets of London in a horse and cart. So he clearly was someone who was involved in that sort of aspect of things, which was quite impressive. And the other experts they got were quite impressive. I think the doctor or the pathologist.
Jason Payne James, yes.
Yeah. Who were you in contact with him as well subsequently?
Yeah. I've been in contact with him quite a few times afterwards.
Yeah. And the policeman guy was very Andy Griffiths was very, very impressive. Yeah. When I've told this story several times that because I how many days were you over for?
Come again?
How many days were you over here for? When they flew you over, because you weren't paid. To clarify, you weren't paid anything, were you? You were just flown over and given a hotel. Is that?
Yeah.
And a few quid for meals or something.
It would have been something like 5 days or something like that, perhaps 5 or 7 days.
Yeah, I know you weren't home for very long, and I was there on several of the days when you were doing filming, not all the time, and when I remember we met when they did the Bucks Row scene, where and Andy Griffiths didn't know who I was. He probably thought I was a junior member of the production team, I suspect. No one said, "Oh, this is a or anything" to him. And I queried something with him, and he was about whether Lechmere would have turned and faced Robert Paul coming on, or whether it was scarpered. And he was very strong on the view, and clearly knew all the testimony. Clearly had read through all the testimony. He was very clear that the person wouldn't have scarpered and would have faced his psychopath.
I discussed that with him too. And I told him how people said he would never have stayed put, and he was very adamant. Of course he would. There was no doubt with him. It was not perhaps he would, perhaps he wouldn't. He was just, oh no, he wouldn't stay put.
Yes,
I thought he was so adamant about it, but adamant he was.
Yeah, and contrary to a lot of the critics, he had clearly read up extensively about it. I've got no idea how much. Presumably, he was paid something by Blink, but I don't know.
No, I don't know.
But he had clearly read up a lot about it and was knowledgeable about the, not necessarily the whole Ripper case, but certainly about the Bucks Row case. He was very well informed, and all the experts, in my opinion.
He followed suit with the film team, because he also went from just neutral to very much feeling that we could quite well have the right guy. He told me so in private that I really think this is the man.
Now, did you ever meet the series producer David McNabb?
No, not in person. I didn't. I've communicated with him over the net quite a few times, but I never met him in person.
Yeah, because the Missing Evidence, Jack the Ripper, was part of a wider series of I can't remember 4 or perhaps 5 episodes, wasn't there?
Yes.
On
Loch Ness Monster.
I think they had one on
Monroe and so on.
Yeah. And so when and he was the series producer. Sam Taplin was the director of your specific episode.
Yeah.
And but when they were interested in commissioning the one, but before they'd made their decision, I'd spoken to one of the assistants on the phone a couple of times at length, and then I was invited into their office to discuss it with them properly, and it was like going to an interview with about 4 or 5 people around a table. David McNabb, Sam Taplin, a few production assistants, and as you know, David McNabb had quite a in-depth knowledge of Ripperology, going back several years. Was firing questions at me. I gave a talk about what the theory was in outline, and then he'd fire questions at me, trying to catch me out or trying to pick holes in. What about this? What about that? And I'd answer that. I'd answer this, and because he's probably very sceptical and probably slightly cynical about a lot of people coming up with crackpot theories, because he would make the a documentary about the Loch Ness Monster. How many crackpot theories? There's probably more crackpot theories about the Loch Ness Monster than there are about who's Jack the Ripper.
Well, or as many. I wouldn't say more. It couldn't be possible.
or how did Marilyn Monroe die? Similar. Similar sort of thing. Conspiracy theories.
He really should put those questions. It would be the right and the correct thing to do. So I understand it.
Yeah. Well, he did, and I was put under quite a rigorous cross-examination. But
he came out impressed in the end.
Obviously, yes, and he actually, I'm going to say this sounds slightly. I'm not quite sure what it sounds like, but you could see they were slightly mesmerised, because when it all falls into place, unless you're one of these people who's totally biased and you'll never believe anything, as some people are, as you know, it's like, I see how it all fits together. And it was kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I'm still in close contact with David McNabb to this day, actually.
Yeah.
And he's a fully fledged believer in the Lechmere. They didn't just do this program. They were saying it's a cynical exercise. They actually invested in it themselves, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Very much so. It wouldn't have been the normal run-of-the-mill affair, because there was such change in all of them, the cameraman and Taplin and just everything. So I'm thinking they must have discussed it in between themselves after the sessions and said, good Lord, this really seems to be correct. And then they approached me and told me so. So that was one of the nicest things about the documentary. Was to see that they were all on board.
Yeah, and it was also one of the first documentaries. It was quite unusual at that time, having drone footage as well.
Yeah, I think that was new. It was prohibited before, I think.
I don't know. It was quite unusual. I saw them setting the drone up. I think it was that night we were in Bucks Row, wasn't it? When I saw it there, I thought, blimey, that's unusual. But
before we get into the final part of this interview, which, yes, is about Christer's book, Cutting Point, please take a moment to subscribe so you get further notifications of my videos. Like, share and comment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so let's move on from there then. To your book.
Yeah.
Cutting Point, Solving the Jack the Ripper and Thames Torso Murders.
Yeah.
So, which is obviously solving the Jack the Ripper, is solving it with Charles Lechmere as the culprit, naturally.
Yeah.
And how did you get that? How did you go about getting that published? An English language book in Sweden. How did you go about that?
Well, it's actually much the same as the documentary. Blink approached us, and when it comes to the book, I was approached by the publisher of Meyer's books. He too has a long-standing interest in the Ripper case, and he had seen the documentary, and he had been on the net and seen the discussions, and he contacted me and asked me would I write a book about this for him.
Really?
Yep.
So you were...
So I didn't put the question to him, he put the question to me.
So you didn't have to rush around looking for a publisher?
No. He looked for me.
That was good.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That made it a lot more easy for you.
He
saw the documentary. Did he see it in Swedish or in English? Has it been translated?
No, it hasn't aired in Swedish television. But he saw it on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Because he was interested in Ripperology, he independently found it.
The Meyer's books is a subdivision of something called Aleph Books, which is in Swedish, and they have this English-speaking division. So that's where he wanted to put me, and asked me would I write the book for him, and I said, yep, I would.
Did he consider doing it in Swedish, or did you consider doing it in Swedish as well?
No. That was never any question about that. It was always going to be in British.
I mean, it's interesting that the Missing Evidence hasn't aired in Sweden, because it's been on UK TV. I'd say almost every other month. It's on some channel or another.
Yeah, and a lot of other countries. I know that, including
and I know it's been translated into lots of other languages.
Yeah.
And my guess is it must have aired 100 times plus, probably 200 times around the world. And millions of people must have watched it by now. Tens of millions, possibly 100 million. I wouldn't be surprised if 100 million people have seen it by now. Around the world, it's been on loads of times. Australia, America. I think it's been translated. I think it's been in Spanish, all sorts of languages.
Yeah, French, actually.
Yeah. So, you how long did it take to write the book then?
About a year. That's what it took.
Did you just rattle it off, or did you find it? Well, you're a journalist anyway, aren't you? So.
Yes, I am a journalist. So I know how to do that kind of a thing. How to make the disposition as such. And I hadn't asked myself about it because I wasn't considering the possibility. But when it came up, it was very, very easy to shape the book, because I've been dealing with the topic for so long a time, and also because it is a very not complicated matter. It is such a straightforward case. I used to say it would be a wet dream for any criminal investigator, Charles Lechmere. He's so easy, and it's so self-evident how you're going to tell the story. At least I thought so.
Yes. Well, in a way, it's straightforward. But in another way, do you not agree? I don't know if you agree or not, but there's many layers, isn't there? I think one of the fascinating things about Lechmere cases, it's multi-layered, and every little aspect all links together into a whole.
Yeah. But as we were speaking before about pop music and ABBA, people used to say about ABBA, if you take their tunes, their melodies apart, like a puzzle, there's only one way to put it back together again. There's only one logic way to put it back again. And I write in the book, that in the end of my book, I write that, to me, this all resembles paleontology in a way, because it's like digging up one bone in one place and another bone in another place, and all these bones are so very clearly and obviously from the same creature. We don't have all the bones, but there's no question about it's the same creature we're looking at, who lurked at East End streets back in 1888, and more years, but obviously in 1888. So there's an inevitable logic to the Lechmere story, even with the layers, because they only fit in one way. And that is, to a very large degree, I think, the strength of the theory, because other theories, when you pick somebody, a violent man from somewhere who could have been the Ripper and who hasn't been proven to be on any of the spots, and you cannot say where he was when the murders occurred and so on, then you've got loads of space, oceans of possibilities to put the puzzle together. Not so with Lechmere, because you know he was there, you know when he was at that second, you know what he did then, you know what he did next. All of these things restrict how you can build a theory, but you can build a theory, and it builds itself very logically and very simply from beginning to end when you look at him. So writing a book about him, easy stuff. And I wanted to make it easy too. I write that in my book. I don't want to complicate it. I don't want to bring up lots of things that have no impact as such about his being a culprit or not. Like, for example, I used the example of the Goldstone Street graffiti, where you can go on and on. Did he write it? Did he not write it? Well, interesting per se, but I don't think it should cloud the book as such, because it will only bring a lot of discussion material that won't take us anywhere to the book. So I try to keep it as easy as possible, as simple as possible, and the theory as such gently allows for it, no problems at all.
Yes, thank you very much. This has been a very interesting discussion, Christer, and I'm sure other viewers will agree. I discussed with you about doing future episodes where we go through some of the criticisms of the Lechmere theory that other theorists or other writers have come up with, and showing why, in detail, why those arguments are always false.
Yeah.
And if we want to take this example of a skeleton of a mammoth or a Tyrannosaurus Rex or something, where you find the different bones, and you haven't got all the bones, but they add up to they all fit together for a skeleton, so you can see what the shape is without necessarily every single one of the bones. Their arguments are always like a bit that doesn't just fit; it just doesn't fit. and they try and shoehorn it in effectively, don't they? So we'll do some of those if you're up.
Yeah, that would be very good and very interesting to do that. Yes.
And it occurred to me just earlier today that lots of people say about that period, the Jack the Ripper period and the Jack Ripper murders, that there's so much that we don't know because a lot of the police files were thrown away, for example. Obviously, that's the case. But there is actually an awful lot that we do know and that we can make sensible judgments on.
Yeah.
And plenty as far as Lechmere is concerned. And so we can go through these arguments with a fine tooth comb. And the devil is in the detail in this case, in my opinion.
Yeah. There are many people who say that it's so far away in time distance, and we know that there are so many things that we do not know just to say. But some of the people who discuss the case, they use that to more or less always go for, no, we cannot tell that, and we cannot tell this because we're so removed in time. And that is completely wrong. And I think that Andy Griffiths voiced it in the documentary to a degree when he said that it always boils down to what people said. And we have what people said in a very large degree. It's been recorded. We got it in the newspapers. Okay, there are varying newspaper reports. There are differences in between them. But there is absolutely enough to make a very, very good case with what it was.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that, Christer. Thank you for appearing. I'll also be doing some question and answer videos in the near future where people can send their questions in, but details about that soon. Well, that just about wraps it up for today, Christer. Thank you for giving me your time and giving the viewers your time.
Thank you.
Hopefully, in the near future, we'll go in and have a deep dive into the detail, as we both said. There's a tremendous amount of detail in this case that needs to be mastered to know really what the outcome is.
Yeah. Looking forward.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Please subscribe, share, and put your comments in the under the video for a good discussion about the contents of this interesting discussion with Christer Holmgren. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Details of how to get Christer's book will be in the description below the video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, share, like and comment. Thank you very much. Watch again next time.